to conduct some kinds of trade and commerce, but that's not what's going to shut down ISIS by any means. It's going to take hardcore, ultimately on-the-ground fighting, door-to-door fighting to root these guys out, and we can't leave any of them. You've got to decimate every last one, or the problem continues.
So instead of a rapid response team, why don't they just get together? Everybody's over there tonight, having a grand old time, sitting around, having cognac, smoking cigars, telling stories. Why don't they just say, hey, Harper, Canada, get over here. We're going to go in and kick some ass. You with us? And why don't they just do it?
Yeah, no, you're either with us or you're not.
Exactly.
And if you're not, you better explain why.
Right.
And we'll keep you in mind as we pick up an awful lot of intelligence, and we'll decide who we're going to share it with. And I'm being facetious.
Yeah.
Certainly, Rob, because Canada has been one of our most wonderful allies. I know the Canadians have suffered a lot of losses themselves in both Iraq and Afghanistan, and when I talk about U.S. troops, I always want to talk about Canadian sacrifice too. And as you and I talked before I came on air, I've been to Canada many, many, many times. I love it up there. I love being there. I love the people. And why aren't they doing that tonight? I don't know. I mean, I'm ecstatic that the Prime Minister of Cameron has gotten President Obama off dead center a little bit. I think President Obama should have been embarrassed. Somebody asked me on Fox, what should our president be doing? I said, well, what he ought to be doing is calling David Cameron and asking David Cameron what he ought to be doing, because our president, Obama, doesn't really know what he ought to be doing. David Cameron's kind of leading us all right now. And frankly, Angela Merkel is doing things herself. The Germans have already started supplying equipment and supplies to the Kurds. The U.S. said we would. We haven't done it yet. So,
all right,
it's so complex.
You opened the door, so I'm just going to open it a little further. Your Vice President, Joe Biden, yesterday said, we take care of those who are grieving, and when that's finished, they should know we will follow them to the gates of hell until they are brought to justice. And then he said, because hell is where they'll reside. What happened to Joe Biden?
Well, I wonder if that's his first shot out of the gates as he tries to run for president. Whether or not Hillary's going to run a little bit up in the air still, and I know Joe Biden's standing in the wings, hoping it's going to be him. I had to laugh when he said that. I mean, it sounds great. The rhetoric is wonderful. Joe's not going to be there when we chase him into the gates of hell, so it's easy for him to talk about. But once again, we're talking about our servicemen and women having to be the ones that do things like that, and it's great rhetoric, but it means sacrifice once again.
But is that what the American people needed to hear, that someone was actually coming forward and talking the talk?
Oh, yeah, no, to the extent that the American people are paying attention, and they don't always pay attention. Some people probably wondering what the heck he was talking about. That's how attentive many folks here are in the media. But, yeah, and I have to wonder if he didn't get a call from the White House shortly after he did that, and they asked him to tone it down a little bit because it embarrasses the president, much as when the Secretary of Defense and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs got a little bit ahead of the White House there and had to come back the next day and tone their comments down just a little bit. It was great to hear the vice president say it, but we need to hear that from the president.
I was talking to somebody yesterday, and the conversation basically was the same as you and I are having right now. And I had an epiphany. It happens once in a while, Craig. Don't look so surprised. Can you just imagine if this had happened when and if Hillary Clinton was president? Here you would have, the nice part about this, and people laugh when I say this, but you would have not only the knowledge of one president, but the knowledge of another president. You'd have two for the price of one.
Exactly. Well, that's right. You would. Yeah. And I have to say something. I am no fan of Hillary Clinton by any means, Rob. And it's clear that she made mistakes in Benghazi. But she's the kind of person who learns from her mistakes, unlike, I think, President Obama. And I think she's a lot more decisive than him. I think she really wants to be a chief executive, wherein he doesn't. He's found it to be a little more work than he expected it was going to be. And, he loves going to the fundraisers because when he's there, everybody's patting him on the back, and they're all having that glass of cognac or brandy or whatever and, smoking their cigars and saying, what a great job you're doing, Mr. President. But then he has to come back to reality where he has to go to the White House and sit there in the Oval Office and make decisions. And it doesn't appear that he really wants to make decisions about things that he either doesn't know about or is not interested in. So I agree. Had Hillary been there, I'm sure Bill would have been next to her, and they'd have both been coming up with some decisions that probably in the long term would have been better than the kinds of decisions we're getting out of this guy.
Do you think that boots will hit the ground in order to squelch ISIS?
Do I think boots will hit the ground?
Yes.
Listen, I like your question a lot because, let me say this first. We talk now about having to go in and train the Iraqi army. I mean, they all crumbled and ran when ISIS came in. And the fact of the matter is we don't have to retrain them because they are trained. We need to do some retraining. But the real failure of the Iraqi army was their leadership. And, core leadership is the most important thing that makes an army work. If it hadn't been, and that's why leaders often get fired. World War II being a good example of, Eisenhower firing U.S. officers now and then and replacing them with people who would fight. Maliki, as prime minister, went in after the Americans left, and he did literally decimate the senior officer corps in the Iraqi army. Those Iraqi officers who had worked alongside Americans during the whole war, who had a great rapport with Americans, who were well-trained, frankly, many of them schooled and educated here in the United States. Maliki booted them out. He put in his cronies. I had first-hand experience after U.S. forces left. Rob, I've been to Iraq 13 times. Since U.S. forces left, I worked over there for a while with the former commander of Iraqi Special Operations Forces, who had commanded the force for a long time. He was a real tough, no-nonsense guy, well known to U.S. Special Operations Forces. And when Maliki, first chance he had, he fired the guy and brought in a know-nothing. Ironically, he had to come back about a year later. Maliki, he'd come back about a year later and say, I made a mistake. Will you come back? We need your help. Indeed, they did need their help. There were a lot of terrorist acts going on that the new commander, I was told, never left the office.
Wow.
The old commander, my friend, was out on every operation with his troops. And that's what those Iraqi troops, who probably need some retraining, but more likely need good leadership. And those leaders are still there. Those Iraqi officers who were serving are still there, and hopefully the new prime minister will call them in. Now, your question about
Colonel, we're going to have to hold on to this because you and I have to go to our news break. Exo Nation. Colonel Cowan is my guest. We'll be back right after the news. Don't go away. Hi, this is Rob McConnell, just letting you know that the X-Chronicles newspaper is now available online at www.xzonebookclub.com. All past editions and current editions of the X-Chronicles newspaper are available for 99 cents. That's www.xzonebookclub.com, and that's 99 cents U.S. per edition. And don't forget, the X-Zone store is now open as well for all of your Exo Nation merchandise. www.thexzonestore.com.
Do you have a dis-ease that you would like to alleviate through a natural means? Have you been contacted by angels, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Mara, and I'm offering my services free of charge for first-time clients contacting me during the month of April. These free consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you have always wanted to explore these types of experiences but were skeptical or simply could not afford them, then take advantage of this free special offer. Contact me through my website, aguidinglight, spelled LITE.com, to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
Welcome back, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Bill Cowan is our special guest this hour. www.colonelcowan.com. All right, I'm sorry I had to interrupt you to get the news in. Bill, I know what you and I are talking about is more important than the news that gets reported, but I have to ask you the question, what about boots on the ground?
Well, here's the deal with boots on the ground. Of course, our president, and frankly, let me say my own son has made 5 tours to Afghanistan, Rob. My family's engaged in the war, and he's slated, even though at this late hour, to go back one more time. So I don't think anybody wants no more American or Canadian boots on the ground more than me. But I think we have to be realists at the same time. We are, in my judgment, going to have to put some people on the ground, not American combat forces. And I think the White House will end up cutting a real fine line here. When they say no boots on the ground, that means organized military units such as we've had overseas these many years fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. That does not mean advisors, which is a little bit different. And I would note that I was an advisor as you noted in the introduction, advisor in Vietnam for 2.5 years and got wounded 3 times as an advisor. So the last thing the White House wants is anybody wounded or any casualties. But those things happen when you're an advisor. And here's why advisors are important. Right now the White House wants to, and the Pentagon they'll probably accept advisors up to the division level, which means far away from the fighting, or the brigade level, or regiment, once again, pretty far away from the fighting. Battalion, you're getting closer to the fighting. Company level, now you can actually be engaged in the fighting. And what happens is that our pilots overhead are going to want, before they start dropping airstrikes in places where there are a lot of troops or a lot of civilians, they are likely going to want people on the ground to help designate the targets. When you have 2 combat units, an Iraqi force as an example, and an ISIS force engaged in battle, close order combat, where aircraft can turn the tide of that battle, you want to have Americans down there who pilots can talk to. They want to talk to an American. They don't want to talk to an Iraqi. Or they want to talk to a Canadian. They don't want to talk to a Kurd. And I think that's the point where we'll have boots on the ground, although it won't be in that term of regular conventional units. It'll be small units of American or Canadian forces out there, British maybe, out there operating forward with some fighting units. That's going to be required if we're going to really be able to sock it to ISIS, and if we don't want to suffer fratricide, friendly casualties down there because bombs are dropped on the wrong people.
We've got the yet another anniversary of 9/11, just a few days away. Do you think that there is any threat from ISIS or any other terrorist group that there may be another attack on America on September the 11th, or an American target like Benghazi was?
Yeah, I tend to think of it a little bit differently. A lot of people want to put a lot of a focus on anniversaries. I don't always feel that way. With my background in dealing with terrorists and terrorism, I typically find that they want to strike at something when conditions are right for them, when everything on their side is right, and that may end up being 9/11. It may end up being 10/11. They're going to want to put plans and operations together. Now, that's for bigger activities or operations. Certainly, a little 1 or 2 man cell maybe go out and do something. And I wouldn't be terribly surprised. ISIS needs to do something sooner rather than later, Rob. They need to get their name on the map. They're out there right now flying the flag as the preeminent radical Islamist movement out there. They formed the caliphate. They said they're going to fly their flag over the White House. They want to do something without a doubt. I don't know that they're as wrapped to 9/11 as everybody else. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some small thing on 9/11, but I also won't be surprised if some relatively small thing, I don't think it would be a big thing, they haven't had time yet, if some small thing happens, because they want that notoriety. My goodness, if they could do something as simple as kill 1 or 2 policemen, as an example, here in the United States, uniformed policemen, and have a picture taken of those policemen with somebody holding an ISIS flag, a dead policeman, somebody holding an ISIS flag behind them. That would be on the World Wide Web immediately, out there on social media, and it would be an incredible recruiting tool. As small an action as it was, it would be an incredible recruiting tool for ISIS, and that's what they still want. They want to be seen as the #1 terrorist organization. They pushed Al-Qaeda off the map. They want to continue to push them further off, and incidentally, I think I mentioned before that Al-Qaeda in Syria, many of those people have slipped over to join ISIS because ISIS is the big guys, Al-Qaeda is the little guys. So we're going to see more Al-Qaeda entities around the world, I believe, trying to link themselves and be aligned with the